Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 109 of Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising is an initiative of Ubiquity University and over 300 organizations from around the world to provide an ongoing global commons for people of goodwill from all over the world to come together to share their experiences of what it's like going through this extraordinary pandemic, to share solutions that they are implementing, which are globally scalable, and to take counsel together as to how we can more effectively give shape to the post-pandemic world. We're in October. We've just started the month of October. The pandemic hit in January, February, and then by March, most countries were going into some form of lockdown, social distancing. It's been an unprecedented event in human history that, among other things, has put all of us in the same conversation. And I would say that as we start October, the world is a bit confused. The pandemic is proving itself to be quite intractable. And regions all over the world are experiencing rises in their COVID-19 levels. They're not quite sure what to do about it. People are tired of engaging in social distancing and not being able to work. Our economies are still in standstill. Stimulus packages are being developed by countries trying to figure out how do you navigate through a situation where we need to be in isolation to protect our health, but we need to be working together to protect our economies, our politics, and our sanity. And then, as you all know, late last week, Donald Trump, after derisively ridiculing face masks and social distancing and the pandemic as a kind of a Chinese plot and then fake news and a conspiracy of Democrats, comes down with COVID-19 and is taken to Walter Reed Hospital outside of Washington, D.C. Again, consistent with Trump, reports were inconsistent. One doesn't know what really happened or what his actual state of affairs is. But the US election has now been upended by the President of the United States after months of refusing to take any precautions, either on behalf of himself or the staff in the White House and the entire country, which resulted in the United States having the highest COVID contagion and death rates in the world by several orders of magnitude. There are reports that he'll be going back to the White House today, but it's uncertain whether he's even well. It's uncertain what the national politics will respond as we go into a major election on November 3rd. So all of us are carrying, I would say, the burden, the global trauma of the pandemic as it seeps into our bones. As day after day, we have to navigate through something we don't fully understand, we can't control, and yet is confronting us as never before with questions that demand answers. Today, we're going to go from Kailash, Mount Kailash, to Davos. Mount Kailash, for those of you who don't know, is the sacred mountain of Asia, honored by the Chinese, Hindu, Confucian, Southeast Asian cultures and religions and spiritualities as the most sacred site. The axis mundi, as they call it, the central axis of the world in the towering Himalayan mountains. I was there actually with a group of our students on the full moon in August of 2016. So I've been very excited about this session today that's going to be convened by Yanling Duan from China, who has been part of our program a number of times and is convening this panel today. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Yanling. But before we do, we want to start with probably the most important thing any of us can do on any given day as we traverse this extraordinary human experience, where a microbe have stopped in our tracks the mighty species Homo sapiens. In the midst of all this incoherence, we need to find coherence. It's the key to our health. It's the key to our psychic and I would say emotional equilibrium. And so each day as we begin our programs, we take 1 minute and we place our attention on our heart. Maybe you want to put your hand over your heart and just close your eyes and try to listen to the heartbeat of your own heart with a spirit of gratitude and thanksgiving that you're alive at this unbelievably critical moment. And you have a role to play in the outcome of this drama. So for 60 seconds, just be aware of your heart and the hearts of all of us here gathered together today. Thank you, everyone. And now with an open heart, I want to introduce all of us to Yanling Duan, who will commence our program from Kailash to Davos. Yanling.
Thank you so much, Jim. And thanks your prayer and meditation bring all of us here by the screen, different screen across the world. Through this window, we can get connected in the spirit of coherence. And for even later, when people will get a chance to review this and review and witness this moment. My name is Yanling, and it's in tremendous gratitude of all the weavers and helpers to connect us in the presentations of I with this wonderful platform and Jim as this convener holder. And I'm sitting together with one of weaver convener holder, Grandma Jyoti. Together with me, we're going to open the first sections of this 1.5 precious hours, minutes, seconds, and share something incredibly, tremendously we find important. And all we can do is to share and wait, see the resonance, response, and coherence, hopefully. And that's our intentions for today. And as a representative of block-based, we have been working as this black sheep during World Economic Forum in Davos as a new voice to convene the different stakeholders to look at the world in a very different perspective. Can we really look at anything we have in common from different perspectives, bridging East and West, consciousness and intelligence, action ideas, but how can we find the point of coherence? At the end, we thought there's one thing we have in common, that's in heritage, ancestry. But here we're sitting together with Earth delegations of original nations. We are looking at ancestry in a new light, which is beyond our blind line, beyond our cultures, beyond our different spiritual paths. That thing that from the very beginning that unite us and manifested so many wonderful miracles in different forms. We call it life. So in the spirit of celebrating life, we are in remembrance of our ancestry. And in that spirit, block-based are trying to invest for the sacred economy in the spirit. Means we go up in path. We've been going very, very action-oriented, metalistic Western way, we call it. In elements, West is the metal, East is the wood. But we are softly growing, silently growing this Eastern ancestry and that code of slowly growing organically. Can we adopt that into collective consciousness in this time of age? After COVID, even in the mainstream, prayers, meditations, stop, flow, all this word start being embraced by mainstream. And look at spiritual heritage, look at indigenous culture, look at earth, Gaia consciousness. It's all becoming very common terms, which is something we really need to celebrate. Maybe that's a little gift we got in this very, very special critical time. Block-based launched Open Mountain Project in this spirit. Can we find something symbolically that we all have in common in this spirit? In Eastern tradition, we believe we are part of nature. We are not in protection of nature. We are guardian of life, and we are looking at the sacred sites and Kailash as a symbolic act to call for our remembrance, what is really important to our life. And Davos will also pose the question, is that simple power and economy, decision-making process, with all the achievements and their contribution, it's a time to reflect. Is there any other way? We suggest this as a symbolic pilgrimage from Kailash to Davos, calling for yogis, spiritual artists to create work around inspiration by Mother Earth and sacred sites in particular, and carry this in the spirit of gift economy to the happening arts, sacred gathering, in decision-making sessions around the world. Synchronistically, we landed in Stockholm. So this journey will continue going on, but this stop we are in Stockholm, which is one of my adopted countries. And so we're going to share a little video to have a more contextual background of this project. And then we'll invite Jyoti, Mother Jyoti, to give us a prayer, because we consider every project is a prayer. And that's one of the idea we are convening the new weavers and system designers, architects to work together. So allow me to share Open Mountain. Is that working? It's just the episode of the first episode, and we are going to the live of the second episode in celebrations of the Earth Delegation of Original Nations and also Sacred Economy Stakeholders Gathering. So we are here in Stockholm, and let's welcome Mother Jyoti for a prayer, and we are listening.
Thank you. So if all of us could just take a moment and just take a deep breath in all together and then breathe it out. And again, and breathe it out. And breathe it in and breathe it out. And this time as you breathe it in, connect with that starlight that lives right in the center of your being and light it up. Oh, Mother, Father, God, we share this breath of life with you. We are all part of this creation, and I give thanks. I give thanks to the four elements, the mother elements of this planet Earth that guide our way, that hold sacred space for us so that we might put on our skins and stand here with her right now in this critical moment of her transformation. I give thanks to the spirits of the four directions that are holding this divine circle for us now as we gather from all points of the world. I give thanks for those spirits that are above us and below us and those that are working through us. I give thanks for the hand of the ancestor that is on every shoulder here. May we feel that connection now more strongly than ever before. May we open up ourselves to be the vehicle of service we've come to be. This is my prayer. We are in such an amazing moment, and as I was preparing to sit with you tonight, Creator, I saw myself going inside of a teepee, a global teepee, where all of humanity is gathered under the skins, the skirts of this Mother Earth, and her hands are reached up to the star nation so that the smoke of the prayer of the fire within the circle in the center of her teepee, it can move our prayers and bring them together, and we can offer them up through her hands to this great star nation and through that motion to all of this creation. I see myself sitting in that teepee, Creator, as we enter it in, as the sun is going down, as we move into the time of night, and as our drum, the heartbeat of the mother, moves us through the sacred songs and traditions that have held us here in this creation since its original time. And for that, Creator, I give great thanks. That these old ways from original time are being brought into our spaces now so that we can sit again sacred way and walk a sacred path, communing and dialoguing with this creation and listening to the intelligence of this creation so Mother Earth can guide us through this time of evolution and ascension and new expression of life. I give great thanks that we have been able to sit on our knees in those holy ways, to be humble in the presentation of who we are, to hold our hands on our hearts and feel the breath of our lives and mix and synchronize those heartbeats, those breaths with the breath and the heartbeat of this Mother Earth, and through her to all creation. I see myself sitting all night long, the night bringing healing to those that need it, helping us to open to prayer through our hearts and stilling our minds so we can be present in the present moment where our life is in motion and in making. The night moves us till we get to that midnight time. And that's the time, they say, when things start to shift inside. So if there's anything that we need to complete in our prayer that night, this night, on this earth night, that we do so. We complete it. We lay it down. We let ourselves get well. We let ourselves get humble. We let ourselves be ourselves so we can move into the time where we're moving towards a new dawn. We get to the place just past midnight when we bring our holy smoke, we bring our holy prayer. The purpose of this meeting gets felt by all that are holding it together. And for that purpose, we are doing so tonight. So let us ground ourselves in our purpose. Let us let go of that which would distract us from that purpose, from the intention that we brought as a soul nation to activate and move in gentle ways, listening to the intelligence of that which called us. And we move our songs, and we move that heartbeat around the circle. We move closer to that time when the dawn is breaking. And that water woman, she goes outside and she takes that bucket of water and she walks around the teepee with purpose and intention and full focus for her people, for life itself to be maintained, sustained, and nourished and cherished in all the aspects of its expression. She walks gently to every direction, and she takes a moment to stop and honor that which that direction holds. She moves from the east to the south, the place of innocence, the place of joy, the place of our childhood memory and remembering. She returns us to the innocence of what is. And she moves to the west and she turns to that direction and she gives great gratitude for the feminine of that direction, for the wisdom of the bear that sets in that direction, for the dreams and visions that enter through that direction to guide and formulate our lives here. And we move our bucket and walk to the north, the place where all the old ones live, where the ancestors and the teachers that have ever been and will be are sitting in communion to bless us, protect us, and guide us on our way. Let us stay rooted in that ancestral understanding of who we are so that we can take that line of ancestry back to the original times and move it again forward in this one so that we might repair it wherever it might have been weakened or broken, so that we might stand now in this moment of the great dawning together, firmly planted, rooted in who we are. Then she goes to that door in the east and she turns herself to the morning star. For the morning star comes to announce the dawn that's coming. And the morning star calls for the sun itself to rise and bring us into a new day. She takes a moment to reach with her hands up to that morning star and put its blessings in this holy bucket of water. And then she turns and they open the door and she comes to sit on her knees behind that bucket lined up with that holy fire in the center of this teepee of life, with all of community circled round. This old woman, she has listened all night long to the prayers that have been offered. She's collected them carefully, weaving them like beautiful pearls into a necklace where all humanity is represented. And she gathers them here now as she rolls that holy smoke and lights it from the fire itself, so that that prayer she's about to bring through will be represented by that grandmother, the one that dreamed us into place and is still dreaming us now. For they say on that third song, where they're calling it all into place, that old grandma comes to sit behind that woman on her knees at the bucket. And she takes 4 long draws on that sacred smoke and she blows them to honor the earth and to honor the middle world and to honor the heavens, and she blows them to honor herself. And she blows that holy smoke into the holy water of the bucket. So we are in this moment right now together, here together as humanity. We are here in this moment where we need the clarity of that water in the bucket. We need the prayers that have all been gathered through all of time that brought us here. We need to wake up inside ourselves and remember who we are and listen to the prophecies that prepared us to stand here now and are instructing us in this moment. Can we listen? There is this pandemic. There is this moment when the Mother Earth said, stop, take a moment of pause. And as one of our delegates of the Mother Earth delegation, Jinky in Australia, she said, sit in your 0 point. Sit there and light your fire for yourself, for your family, for your community. Reclaim your solidarity in this moment, your sovereignty of this moment. Sit in this moment and let yourself be instructed by it. And so we have been doing so. And now the moment has taken us here, where the earth has shook us, her fires have run across us. This little bug that has moved through all the peoples and cleanses us and purifies us and stills us and informs us that we must come out of this moment of self-reflection and stillness, and we must begin to listen to the instructions so we can put forward the new form, the new systems that will support and sustain life and bring us back to the original principles of life, so we might remember who we are. We are remembering who we are. It is such a great moment of joy. And I know that that may sound controversial in some ways, Creator, but I feel your joy. I feel your joy. I feel your compassion. I feel your understanding, and I feel your patience. Can we forgive ourselves so that we might remember that it's not about me and them, it's about the all of us. That when I look at the mirror of life, I can do so by looking at myself. And when I am not clear, I can look into the heavens and see myself. I can go in the forest and look at all the beautiful, tall, standing ones, and birds that are flying, and the squirrels that are running, and the creepy crawlers, and all that's moving in life inside this forest, and see myself. I can go stand at the ocean and feel the magnificence of something that's breathing as the tide moves in and out, and all that swims through this great deep sea of the mother. The wells that carry the song of what was and what is, and are now beginning to change their song so they can take us into where we're going. They have done so since the original time. Are we listening? I go to stand on the top of this mountain, Mount Kailash, to start a pilgrimage in the new dawn. A new dawn that is breaking first inside our hearts and in our system, so we might light ourselves up and walk this pilgrimage together in union for all nations, for all this creation. I am pleased and so much joy that flows, Creator, because as we begin to remember, we see ourselves as nature itself. And how holy that is. Now, Creator, it is time to serve the water in that bucket. It is time for it to be passed first to that first one sitting there. Might they take it? Might they touch themselves with it? Might they touch their hearts so it can open broader? Might they touch their minds so their minds can still and become instruments of the heart? Might they drink it deeply so their souls will be nourished? And as it passes itself around this humanity, this circle of humanity, might we understand the connectedness that we have, and may we cherish that connecting point of life once again, not only amongst us as human beings, but amongst all beings, amongst all of Earth's family. For she has a family she travels with, Creator. You know that. This family of the sun and the moon and the stars, the Milky Way, the Pleiades, the planets that revolve around her, and then all the cosmos as they travel through time. For such a family, and that we are a part of such a family, humbles one when the memory arrives. And as this nourishment passes back, it comes back to the woman that sits behind this holy, holy medicine of water, this water of life. And she takes the last drink for us all. And as she does, that grandmother that dreamed us into being is nourished deeply. For we are remembering. Help us listen. Help us be. This is my prayer. This is my prayer. This is my prayer.
Thank you, Karma Jyoti. We never rush prayer. We never put human timing into what needs to flow. So we are right on time. Today, this sacred container is on a 1.9, I heard, humanity rising. According to many traditions, 108 is the completion. And now we are really on the new. And we're done with contemplation. And how about the next step? Before we move the next step, which direction we're moving, that's super concretely important. There are two things in Chinese I'd like to share for those who only speak English as a mother tongue. That's teeny tiny of off from the starting point, 100 miles off when we finish. So now it's very important. In Tao Te Ching, it says that perfect destinations, 1,000 miles away, start from today, prototyping, trying. So today we are doing prototyping Utopia. So I call it a Protopia journey. Mm-hmm. And we bring in a spirit of remembrance, we bring in the ancient future, which is innovative way of celebrating our spirit of origin. How can we live together? In peace, in abundance, in joy. Be the artists, designers, poets we were born to be and play together, seriously. And in that time, we will be our systematic contribution. So for that calling, I'm calling in today a very important inspiration during my journey on this planet, seeking a systematic solution on the impasse, on this non-confrontational, completely guided, synchronized, coherent way of living together. And in the misunderstanding of 5 elements, many people thought money is gold, metal. No, money is water. Economy is water that flows through the system to sustain life. It's not conceived as fire to drive. When you use it wrong, it's to drive greed. They can burn, they can give life. And metal, clear thinking, technology, when it's used for that purpose, it does more harm. So what we're trying to do today, one calling in abundance, prosperity, economy as a form of water in a purified form, the possible, and guided by the commonwealth and common prosperity. There's one magic community called Auroville, in French means the light village. Something. And it's inspired by the spiritual leader Aurobindo and the mother, and they envisioned this place. And they never even set feet on there, but they created in an invisible room. And now, half century later, it's still the seeding ground for the whole planet to create this kind of grounded teachers, practitioners, leaders to innovatively live together. So I'm introducing my great honor in support of Mother Aurobindo and really in great thanks to demonstrate this, how they have lived 50 years or more as an individual. As an individual facing normal challenges, they chose this checkout lifestyle and built this light villages in South India. So with that great honor, I will invite Deepak, which is also a block-based fellow and super knows, one of the great student of life and explorer of spiritual science. And he's gonna host this session, inviting all our representative Auroville, and they just finished a ceremony in responding to Open Mountain project initiated by Fountain and Block-based in this session. So great honor, welcome Deepak. And after that, we will have a short surprise and welcome Auroville special on project. Deepak.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yanling, and thank you very much, Jyotima. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe can I ask all folks to just open your cameras and so I will start with the chanting of a mantra. It is from Isha Upanishad, 500 BC. Ishavasya sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tvaktena bunjitha magridha kasya swedhanam. Gandhi said that if there's one mantra which survives of all ancient Indian tradition, this should be this mantra. And this is a mantra which also inspired the father of Rabindranath Tagore and moved us to where we are as India as a country and our first Asian Nobel Literature Prize winner. Coming to Auroville. So Auroville is a word comes from two words, aurora from French word which means dawn and ville which means city. So Auroville literally translates into city of the dawn. Jyotima, you called it's a great dawning. So such a pleasure that we are moving towards the city of the dawn. Mother, the founder of Auroville, called it the cradle of the new earth. What is Auroville? Auroville was founded in 1968 by the vision of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Auroville is a place which is not owned or belong to anyone in particular, but it belongs to humanity as collective. Auroville is a place of unending education. Auroville is a place which moves or links past to the present. And Auroville is a place where we can experiment. It's a social experiment to harness material and spiritual researches. Let me quickly show you a few photographs of Auroville so that we can connect to that place as we move ahead.
Could I ask everybody except Deepak to close their audio? We're picking up some interference. Thank you.
So this is a Matri Mandir, the center of Auroville, a meditation center, and we'll be discussing more about it. Auroville, the architecture of Auroville is very much linked in nature with the trees, ecological balance, and the state-of-art future facilities. Auroville is known for its culture and social projects of working on wastelessness, working with the women of India to work on women projects, making the restoration of the field. It was a barren field, and Aurovillians made it a really vibrant community of trees and a community of people. And Auroville is a place whose purpose is the realization of human unity. This is a photograph where we celebrated Auroville 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. And that's where we come together. I believe no words or no pictures can tell the essence of Auroville, which as an experiment is all based on experience. So I will just go to the Aurovillians to go and understand more about it. And we have divided, as Yanling said, in 4 sections: air, earth, water, and fire. And we see what's happening there. I would like to start with the air section with Devashish. Devashish, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Deepak. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Devashish. Thank you very much. So Devashish, I chanted this mantra from Isha Upanishad. And as I understand, this is also a mantra which is from Isha Upanishad, which is a favorite book of Sri Aurobindo. And you, as a scholar of Sri Aurobindo and a professor and chair of East-West Psychology at California Institute of Integral Studies, how do you link this mantra to the vision of Orwell?
Thank you, Deepak. So what you all heard were some verses from the Isha Upanishad, an early wisdom text of India. This Sanskrit text was of particular importance to Sri Aurobindo, who was a modern anti-colonial activist in the first decade of the 20th century. Early Indian nationalism included a seeking for historical roots, and the engagement with ancient wisdom texts was part of this relation, as was an engagement with the various practices of yoga. Sri Aurobindo's engagement with yoga was also related to the question concerning human potential, as he wanted to know whether yoga offered psychological resources for freedom from colonial oppression. This engagement with yoga brought him spiritual realizations, which also highlighted a problem of our times. This is because he had a number of spiritual experiences, each of which seemed a complete explanation for the cosmos and the place of the human in it, but they didn't fit into a single picture. This was a view that is accepted in India, a plurality of spiritual philosophies which coexist as choices of realization open to a plurality of individual needs. At the same time, each of these philosophies included ways of justifying their superiority over others or negating their reality. Sri Aurobindo realized that this problem was an internal microcosm for the world situation, in which a number of religions and spiritual views coexist, often without tolerance, a situation which has led to horrible violence in the world. In the Isha Upanishad, Sri Aurobindo came across a spiritual ideal of realizing a state of consciousness in which the one and the many, unity and pluralism, were part of the same experience. Later, he wrote his major philosophical work called The Life Divine, based on the ideas of the Isha Upanishad. This view is not one of perennialism, according to which all spiritual realizations are saying the same thing, nor is it one in which one realization trumps all others by dissolving them in its colorless infinity. These exclusive views all belong to the mind. The Isha Upanishad points to a realization which overcomes these limitations and belongs to a consciousness not yet manifest in nature, which Sri Aurobindo referred to as supermind. Sri Aurobindo left nationalist politics in 1910 to move to a place of spiritual practice for this realization. Here he was joined by his spiritual companion and collaborator, a French mystic by the name of Mira Alfassa, whom he designated the Mother. A community of disciples grew up around the two of them in their space for spiritual practice, or ashram, in Pondicherry. In keeping with the goals of the Isha Upanishad, this spirituality was not meant to be world negating, but encompassed all the activities of life with the aim of offering them for the realization of a supramental consciousness and for expressing this consciousness through them when realized. Sri Aurobindo passed away in 1950. In 1968, the Mother started an international community in physical and spiritual proximity of the ashram and named it Auroville. it was the height of the counterculture, when there was a worldwide upsurge of dissatisfaction with the compromises of the humanist lifestyles and an aspiration for something new, something which overcame the contradictions of human existence heretofore. Auroville aspires to be this space. It affirms diversity of psychological, cultural, and expressive backgrounds and orientations, and seeks a realization of supramental oneness, which includes all these forms of unique difference, along with the specific realities of non-human life and the earth itself as the extended body of the collective being. In the mother's words, Auroville may be thus considered the cradle of the Superman.
Thank you. Thank you, Devish. And I have this question, like when I went to Auroville, they talk about the future human, the future of humanity. How does that future human is linked to a collective place?
You want me to say something about that,
Yes.
Deepak?
Yes, Devashish.
So this is exactly where the aspiration for something which is yet to be manifest, a unity which does not negate plurality, is being worked out through individual and social experiment. So the forms of social living also have to manifest that kind of unity, which is decentralized and plural. It's a kind of what Mother calls divine anarchism that works even in terms of the way in which people come to decisions regarding collective life. So spiritual progress, spiritual growth in the individual and its extension into experiences of deep relationship and intimacy leading to oneness of consciousness is the basis for arriving at this kind of a future consciousness. This is a basis. If it can be manifest or realized, it can be regenerated, it can be experimented with elsewhere as well.
Thank you. And my last question to you is then, how does Matri Mandir play a role in it? What is Matri Mandir?
So one of the unique things about Auroville is that it is a city with a soul. The idea of a city with a soul is that at the center of the city, there is a physical space, architecture object, a built space, which does not belong to anybody, but belongs to the city as a whole. And it's a space where people can go to meditate. But essentially, it's a place where individual can, receive as well as project a certain kind of universality. And that universality becomes the essence of their existence in Auroville, in their inner being, as well in their activities. So to keep a space that grounds the spiritual unity of plurality is the meaning of Matri Mandir, also known as the Mother's Temple. The mother here, as the Mother Mira Alfasa herself said, is the universal mother, the mother of the entire creation. And this is why Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole. And the Matri Mandir represents that invitation to human unity.
Deepak, remember we have a discussion in blog-based about synarchy, right? You were talking about decentralized, and there's many words we're using a human personal upgrade. We're trying to using a technological language, and Auroville can be using incredible philosophical language. We are seeking how can we combine that into artistful expression. So continues, and thank you so much. And that's in grace of a mother. Matrimony has one of my most powerful experience space, and really grateful for that. Deepak, back to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yanling. And when you were saying that somebody, I think Rachel also in the chat, put decentralization, which the word, it's the same we use in block base and which Devashish also used as a part of Auroville. Now, I would like to just go to another thing. Thank you, Devashish, from air to earth. Kathy, are you with us here? Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Kathy. I think there's a little bit noise, Kathy, there, but it's okay. I think you will be talking more. So my question, so Kathy, if I'm right, you joined Auroville from Australia in 1997, and then you just made Auroville as your home. And not only Auroville as your home, you also started working with the women here and taking this adventure in personal and collective transformation. Can you say a little bit about your personal story and what you do in Auroville and what Auroville means to you?
Sure. Well, Deepak, as you said, when I came in 1997, it was a completely different cultural conditions. And it was, I really had to absorb and understand the way of life here, which is tropical South India, very different from Sydney, where I grew up. And it was obvious to me that the experience of living here would be one that would be very deeply rooted in the land. And the first work that I found myself doing was tree planting. And this was typical of many of the pioneers that first came to Auroville, is that they started work with reforesting really quite degraded lands. And in that work, it really started to cultivate within me an ecological awareness. And I think something really started to shift in terms of my whole orientation, and I became more sensitive to the earth and just to global realities that had not really occurred to me before coming here. I also, of course, got to know people and about the different sorts of projects and lifestyles that were happening, and it was really inspiring to me to learn about, the work around organic farming, around obviously reforestation was a big part of it, but even sustainable technologies, education, health. And the stories of the Aurovillians really impacted me deeply because I saw a common thread, and it was typically an individual who would just see a need, a gap, and would just sort of jump in, sometimes without much sort of experience or qualification, but they had this kind of conviction that there was a calling to be able to contribute something out of really a necessity. And I think in hindsight, it was really them serving something that was bigger than themselves. I would say the earth itself. So I observed this for many years, and I participated in many sort of service projects myself. And at a certain point found myself gravitating towards what we call outreach work, which is work with the local villages. And I apprenticed myself to a social worker who was leading an organization called Auroville Village Action Group, which was primarily working with women and also men with a low income economic conditions and working on social economic empowerment. And in the process of working with that NGO, we found that they were also struggling to pay their bills and to sustain their operations. And the idea of social enterprise was, was just kind of being talked about in Auroville as an idea. And it really inspired me. And with a friend who had just moved to Auroville, we sort of talked about it and said, let's try to see if we could create a social enterprise that would bring some income to help sustain this organization. But then the big question was, well, what product or service would we work with? So actually, after sort of weeks of sitting with it, I was quite sort of shy, but I bought an idea which had kind of come to me years earlier in Auroville, which was to get into cloth washable menstrual pad manufacturing. And this was a product that I had come across literally on a travel to New Zealand when I was visiting my brother years ago, maybe sort of 10 years earlier. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is pretty much what it is. It's a low-tech cloth-based washable menstrual product. And I was excited about this product when I first came across it, because one of the very first sort of impacts that I discovered moving to Auroville was my own difficulty to handle my menstrual waste, this was a problem I wasn't confronted with when I was living in Australia, but coming to India, it was really obvious that garbage and waste disposal was a major problem. And as I learned about how much plastics and chemicals were going into these disposable sanitary products, it really became unthinkable for me to just try to bury this in the earth, because I knew it was not going away. So with a friend who became the co-founder, we decided to really try to convert this idea of cloth pads into a social enterprise, which we believe with design and with good marketing, we would be able to, you know, actually sustain these women at Village Action who were learning how to stitch, to be able to make these pads so that there would be a livelihood component, it would be profitable. And this was the basic idea. And that became the birth of an organization called EcoFem, which we founded 10 years ago. We just celebrated our 10th year birthday. So actually, I share this story because actually what happened was that this, over the last 10 years, it's become a project with a global reach, starting from really such a sort of small and local conditions of really trying to provide local livelihood for these women. And now we're able to, you know, do menstrual health education and offer free or subsidized cloth pads to rural women, while selling the pads at the moment. We're in 23 countries around the world, as well as in India. And of course, it's a project that's been able to impact on many fronts. I mean, it's been able to, of course, have a big impact on waste reduction, but also prosperity for the local women, health, and culture as well, because it's an entry point to a conversation about something that's been so taboo. And it really has been such a joy. And you know, for me, why I'm telling this story also, I suppose, is because I think it's so illustrative of what I see all the time in Oroville, which is people responding to a call for something within their own hearts. And for me, it was my love of the earth and women that really moved me into this topic. And the process of starting a social enterprise with no business background whatsoever. I think this is also quite typical in Oroville, that sometimes there's maybe unearned confidence that we get into things that that with the knowledge of what it would take, we might never do it. But there's such an attitude here in the community, I find, that's really inspiring. It's a can-do attitude, and it's really a response to something in the heart. So this is a little bit about my story and my journey and what I'm currently involved with.
Thank you very
much. I just want to add one line because I found it important. First, thanks, Katie, to highlight what the spirit of entrepreneurship. When you find what you think is calling and what is needed, and you go for it, not necessarily just like Marjoti will say, we're just learning. And that's really the spirit of entrepreneurship and incubators to encourage. And second thing is, more importantly, I know how many women, when we come across this word, that the product you mentioned, and this collective 1,000 years of patriarchal society have put this kind of shame, strange idea association for one of the most sacred and natural feminine cycle. And one of the important spiritual teaching in ancient time was to honor that and to give that back to the earth as a part of honoring process. And patriarchal society even copy that with sacrifice, which started the downturn for a spiritual practice. So this project, in many levels, from the waste, from the calling entrepreneurship, from this really important collective consciousness correction, I found incredibly resonating. And also, I really love this example of most people are worried about people go for spiritual teaching or go woo-woo all along quoting. And Oroville and Katie's project truly show the way to go and the direction can be doing, and really result can be inspiring so many women and men, of course. Thank you so much, Katie, to come on this call, and grateful. And back to you, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanling. And yeah, Miss, I mentioned about this project 1 year ago to Yanling, and we were like completely excited about that and how we can showcase this project. Thank you, Katie, and all the work you're also doing in educating the young girls in India around this topic. So thank you. And on the then I move to Bridget. Bridget, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Bridget?
Yes, perfectly. Hi,
Hello. You moved to Oroville in 2005, and if I remember correctly, it's because of you really relate to the dream of human unity, realization of human unity of Oroville. What does it mean, and what does it mean to you, what you do in Oroville?
Well, it was lovely actually to hear you saying a couple of some of the words from the Charter of Oroville. And when I first heard the Charter and the Dream document in a film, something very profound resonated inside of me. And I think it was at the core of these documents, which are really the roadmap for Oroville, there's this call for human unity and call for both inner and outer constant progress. And a number of years later, I just found this call for progress inside myself, my own evolution. And that actually is what brought me to Oroville. And then speaking of earth, I became very aware just of the earth that Oroville has emerged from, and just this ancient culture and the richness of Tamil Nadu, the state in India that we're in. And also just deep gratitude to the people, the local people here, who were the early teachers for, the early pioneers. When, the ground was completely denuded at that time, the local people knew where to find the seeds for the indigenous forests. They knew that they were still available in the sacred sites around the temples. And there was also this amazing ancient tank system for waters that still is in places in many parts of Tamil Nadu that became, a basis for our water conservation work here. And even in those days, what food to plant or what to make your shelter or your house out of. There was, and today as well, Oroville is so connected and interdependent on the immediate bioregion that Kathy spoke to as well. There are 13 villages in and around Oroville, and there's 50,000 people. So so there's a great interconnection and interdependence. And when I first came to Oroville, I felt the best way I could serve human unity was to work in village outreach and also to learn from the local people. And I say I stand for full potential for myself and others. And what I mean by that is just showing up and contributing in every way I can towards, thriving communities that have well-being and unity at their center. And I have the privilege to work in education and healthcare in the local villages. The project I work on, Tamarai, it's a project that Kathy and I co-founded together. The name comes from the Tamil word for lotus flower. And we picked it because of the fact that, there's a seed of greatness and potential in each human being. And I think also that's what the dream of Oroville calls for, and just to provide in whatever way we can, the enabling environment for that to thrive and to emerge. And our projects are part of a network of 50 projects that are working in the bioregion or further afield in India. And most of these projects, they're grassroots projects that have emerged just from needs that have emerged and, people being inspired to respond. And in terms of my work, the thing I'm most passionate about is the leadership work we do with adults, youth, and children. And it's based on a model called Radical Transformational Leadership, which was designed by Dr. Monica Sharma. And it's called Radical because it's rooted in, who I am inside, this place of oneness and unity that's in every human being, and getting in touch with that and what I care about in the world. And then transformation, meaning that, I'm in action, and like has been at the core of Oroville from the very beginning, being in action in the world and transforming is very, very important. And this work looks to systems and normatives, that need to be transformed, and looks at designing differently. And the programs we run, they just create an enabling environment for many of us in Oroville and the villages to get in touch with what we really care about and design projects and come up with solutions to, you know, the problems that we meet. And the kids on our programs in Tamarai, I just see them like just flowering through this work and getting in touch with themselves as agents of change, you know. And the kids come up with really practical projects rooted in values like waste management, like Kathy spoke to, or saving trees and saving water, or also normatives that they find that are not okay. Like I'm thinking of one young boy who last year there was polarity in his village and the youth were in disharmony, and he said that he wanted to create, he stood for peace himself, and he wanted to create a sports ground where his village could come together, you know, in peace around. I'm just thinking of another young woman who stood for equality and said that she stood up to child marriage in her village, and you know, she spoke for the girls' rights to further education rather than get married.
Yeah, just on the time, because we are just getting
Okay.
getting into just a few
Great.
more people. But thank you very much for sharing these stories. You know, and I think for me
Welcome.
that is also an earth where a child can say, I can create my own playground here, and that's human flourishing. What you talked about.
And Deepak, I
Thank
want
you.
to add you yesterday, right? You were also helping for planning and education. I understand the passion of Bridget, and so there's the flowing with information. And as we mentioned yesterday, we co-hosted the World Gaia Tour, and we was mentioning about happiness school in Bhutan, and this all new way of how we cannot interrupt the child's natural education. In other time and space. Really grateful. So thank you. So
Yeah.
talk back to you, and we respect the containers time and space, and hopefully that
Yeah.
everyone can have a day. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe if I can get up to 6:20, I just want to at least couple of more things. So one is I am very much touched by the story of Carl Sung. You know, Carl Sung, you, as I understand, you were originally from Tibet and you escaped Tibet. You're one of the many children and came to Oroville in 1974. And now you lead a Tibetan pavilion here. Can you very quickly, just on the time, is how do you feel about Oroville? What Oroville has given you? We cannot hear you. Sorry. No, we cannot hear you. He's with my name Deepak, so he's using my ID. The voice is not happening. Maybe you just unmute it.
Yeah, working on it.
Deepak, we should probably move on and come back to Kalsang later.
Okay, cool. I just want to very quickly also have a word from Mr. We haven't covered a couple of Indians so far. Maybe with Lakshay, very quickly, Lakshay, you are from Delhi. You moved to 2005 to Oroville, and you have your own business in Oroville. How does it work? We know that there's no business; it's a spiritual community. So, how do you do the business there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Among these stalwarts, I am probably the latest entrant to Oroville. It's just been 5 years, which is in Oroville's time still nothing. So, like many others, what attracted me is again the three words, realizing human unity. And I will come back to your question specifically about the business, but let me quickly say why I moved here, being, belonging to Delhi and having working in the development field and organizational management field. I was working as a communication strategist in Delhi. I had my own firm. And it so happened that I came for a workshop to South India, and I visited Auroville and immediately fell in love with it and shipped it here. So the aspects which I really come down to is that here, when we talk about realizing human unity, there are these four mantras that everyone talked about, the charter, which clearly kind of tells us that how we can look at work as service. We can look at work as yoga and as an offering, as a means to prosperity, and even look at money per se as an energy, as a flow, so we look at it in a more conscious way. How do we generate it? How do we store it? How do we use it? How do we distribute it? And as I'm also part of the economy, I would also like to touch upon it that in Auroville, I feel that the way we are different is that product is not at the center of how we work. It is people. So when we say, how do we start a business? It's not a business. It's about finding abundance for Aurovillians, about sustenance, about how do we create prosperity for all of us. So it's not just about for all of us, it's about how do we do the work, what kind of work do we do. So there is no one certain way of doing work and finding abundance. Hence, in Auroville, there are 250 plus units. We call them furtherance units. They are not commercial per se, but they are into income generation. And eventually, it is also a means to constantly progress, to learn about how do we exist integrally, and how do we take bold steps to realize our future.
Yeah.
And
So Lakshay, just on this,
yeah,
so if I understand correctly, then you get an allowance with from Auroville for living here, and then you pay a percentage of the profit back to Auroville.
let's put it this way, that all the units belong to Auroville. So it's not we paying anything to Auroville. Everything is owned by Auroville. It's a collective community owned thing. And we all, whatever, irrespective of the kind of work and the position that we hold or the responsibility we take, we all get maintenances. We call it as a contribution, personal contribution that we get to sustain ourselves as maintenances.
That's a very beautiful way of living. Thank you. I'm just looking into time, just a few more minutes. So thank you very much. And I'm very happy that people like you are coming to Auroville and also bringing that business background and taking it to the world. Thank you, Lakshay. Bindu, can I just take you for the last few words about your consensus building work, and if you can wrap all of us together?
Hi everyone. Very, very glad to be part of this call, because as the first line of a charter says, Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole. So in the service of humanity, we're very happy to share bits and pieces about this experiment. Bearing in mind, as Devashish put it, this is a place for inner and outer experimentation, starting with finding what is the deepest truth of oneself as an individual. With this, Deepak, I have been very active in the chat box, and we have actually our oldest Aurovillian, meaning somebody who came here in the early years of Auroville, be with us. So I would rather have him say something about his journey to Auroville.
Yeah.
And if
Thank
there's
you.
time, I'd be very happy to come back.
Yeah.
And I'm sharing the screen of.
Yeah. Thank you, Bindu. And yes, so B, if I can quickly introduce, he was born in California and he arrived in Auroville in 1974. B, we have only maybe, how do we wrap Auroville in 1 minute?
That's very easy.
wherever you are.
Orville is inside every human being. It is the ideal every child is born with. A world of love, a world in which everyone is supporting everyone else. We give it all these words, all these things we've talked about. It's been so wonderful. It's a blessing to be here with all of you. We're all in that spirit. Uh, One can elaborate the details forever, but just to say that we're joined in this family, this human family, and Oroville is something that we really can't understand because there are no examples of it. And people try to put it in a little box as a eco-village or as some sort of intentional community. It's none of those things. Oroville is a city of consciousness. It's a city that aspires to move the human being to a new species. So we're really talking about something quite radical here, something that Debashish mentioned, and I think all of you are aware of. So Oroville is very difficult to kind of capture in words, but Bindu is good at it, and a few of the other people we have here. So I'm just very happy to be here with all of you. It's truly a blessing. And thank you for all of the work you're doing, Yangling and all the people that we've met today that we didn't know before. We're so happy that we're all working on this thing together. And together we will succeed. No worries about COVID or politics. We're going from Kailash to Davos and beyond.
Thank you, Beat. Thank you for making Oroville your home. Thank you for connecting us to our home, whether it's Kailash, it's Oroville, it's Davos. In a world of interconnectedness, we all are together. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I will land it back to Yanling for the next thing. Yanling, you want to add anything and take it forward?
Is it possible to have one more word?
Yes, go for it. The last word.
Yeah. No, something which has been on my mind. I'm sorry, I should introduce myself. I am Bindu, and I literally cycled into Oroville one dusty afternoon when I was 20 something, and I've been here since then. But what has been in my consciousness lately is this year is the 75th year of United Nations. And if you look at where we are now, United Nations started on a platform which was of multilateralism, where all nations would come together. And we're again fragmenting back to our little nationalistic creeds. And so I would just like to invite all of us here to stay with that question. How do we go beyond nationalities, beyond creed? Oroville was conceived as a place that no nation can claim as its own, but all people with a sincere goodwill and a desire to live the truth can join this experiment. So that is my one word on Oroville. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
A bit of question to really stand out here through this window. And all this process, we've been working in that in space as investment, as the pigeon horse within different ecosystems to try to learn. Is one thing totally resonates with our window, how human potential, super mind, is already in the conscious field. It just needs to be incubated and catalyzed into that new human, which is actually ancient being, that we all have this knowing to be activated. Remember, back to human family. The other thing is about we're calling for a planetary upgrade, because if we continue to build all different apps, while the underlying operational system is backward and exploratory, then there will not be that fundamental changes. That question is resonating with that. And we are running out of time for this session, but we know this ripple, the seeding just starting, and Open Mountain will continue to travel. And again, our heart, our reveals in our heart, inner reflect outer. May we have the really peaceful sacred journey, inner outer, and guided by this inner compass of heart, and Blockbase hopefully can join more organizations in this meta organization to do the personal Planetary great work, and learning from all the teachers and informal community, informal sacred beings, informal systems. Thank you so much, and grateful for Humanity Rising to build this web. And back to you, Unity. We have so many investors, like investors. Alan's there, Stefan's here, and so many friends waiting for the section of investment. But as you said, money is water. Apparently, this is needed, and we take that money metal and next time. Because the time is now, purifying first and then the result later. Thank you so much. And Jim, back to you. Hopefully we are on time. We're always respectful to containers.
Boy, what a beautiful, beautiful session, Jan Ling and all of you from Oroville. I didn't know it was going to have such a deep dive into one of the great light centers on planet Earth at our time. So I really appreciate this. And, I welcome, a deeper dive because, Sri Aurobindo, is one of the great modern avatars. And I think he's of singular importance to all of humanity right now because he focused his evolutionary spirituality, or rather his spirituality, on the evolution of human consciousness in the conviction that a new kind of human being was possible. And in fact, needed to be birthed.
Can I add?
And, one of the people in the United States that went to Auroville and studied with him and the Great Mother was Michael Murphy, the founder of Esalen, with whom I've had a very deep relationship. I worked with Esalen for many years and heard Michael Murphy speak so reverentially about Sri Aurobindo. And as it turned out, as many of you know, Esalen Institute was really the godmother, the fountainhead of the human potential movement in the United States that has done so much to change American and world culture. So what's been emanating from the epicenter of Oroville and the lineage of Sri Aurobindo and the Great Mother is of world importance. And it's my hope, Jan Ling, or some of you from Oroville, we might do a deeper dive in a subsequent session just on the genius of the spirituality of Sri Aurobindo and the Great Mother.
But Jim,
I think that would be a beautiful next session. Then, of course, Jan Ling, we didn't get to yin invest. So we have much work to do.
Bring the Aurobindo's vision into that physical expressions of Auroville after he passed away. So we really want to strengthen the feminine leadership in this new time. And in honor of all the masters we had, and we learn from them, and we continue its creation and celebration, all the mothers and grandmothers. Thank you so much, Jim. And we
yes, thank you all, and we'll get to Sri Aurobindo and Yin Vest. Jan Ling, we can maybe talk tomorrow and think about this, because this was really rich, everyone. In many ways, Oroville is the mother lode. And it's the mother lode not only because of the grandeur of its founding in a classic masculine-feminine harmony, but the fact that Oroville has actually lived that vision in real time with real people.
That's the point.
And has flourished and seeded the sparks of new consciousness globally. So this is a very important session, everyone, and I thank you all for it. Tomorrow we will shift from the east coast of India to the United States. We're going to have a award-winning artist and musician lead us in a Get Out the Vote session where we talk about the importance of the upcoming US election. The election coming up on the 3rd of November in the United States could not be more important for the future of the United States, and I would say the future of the world. We cannot allow Donald Trump 4 more years. We all understand that. He's come down with COVID-19 unexpectedly. We don't know the implications of this. We know we're in a dangerous situation where there is a concerted strategic endeavor to subvert the electoral process. It's being done in broad daylight. And so, like we focused attention on the death of George Floyd in May and had many sessions on the issue of race around the world, so tomorrow we'll be delving into the specifics of the politics and the importance of the exercise of democracy in one of the world powers. So I want to thank everybody for the inspiration today, and I hope we'll bring it into the intractabilities and complexities of US politics tomorrow. We meet at 5:00 p.m. Central European Time, as we do virtually every day since the 22nd of May, Monday through Friday. Humanity Rising, bringing the world together to have conversations that matter and seek to transform them into actions that truly make a difference. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful session. See you again tomorrow on Humanity Rising.